Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today I'm looking at Wild Assent, which is coming for a 1.5 campaign to GameFound, but I'm covering just the original content of the game. And a quick thank you to Lazy Squire for sending me the review copy of this one. Wild Assent is certainly in that hunting and boss battling genre that we've covered a lot recently with games like Primal or Kingdom Death Monster. But how well does the solo and cooperative play stand on its own? Let's find out and get to the list. So first for number 5, I'm going to start with a full-on pro, and that's the characters and how you upgrade them. So in the hunt mode, which again is the solo and cooperative mode, there's also a competitive arena mode. You have 4 seekers divided among the players, and instead of them leveling up as they defeat monsters and those kind of things, instead as you build up your settlement, your encampment, and get more buildings there, you unlock abilities for the characters. And these abilities are quite diverse, and the seekers, your heroes, are also quite diverse. They have different movement values, different ranges, different special abilities, and as you unlock more and more, they increase kind of the range and variety of the tactical combat. You have more kind of combos and ways to deal with enemies and interact with terrain. Now you can also sort of level up by getting equipment, but that's fairly rare, so it really comes down mainly to your character abilities, and those are pretty good. But I'm going down to a full-on con for my number 4, which is the encampment phase. So in the campaign structure, you have 10 hunts and 10 encampment phases. Think of Kingdom Death Monster, where you go back and craft stuff and get new buildings. But man, whereas in KDM that can be a lot of fun, this is not so great in Wild Assent. First of all, each character has 5 actions, and they're supposed to be taken in player order, but some of the things you do take multiple actions, and there is no way to track the number of actions. It's very confusing what the entire order of things is, how you coordinate multiple seekers taking multiple actions to do things, so it's just kind of disorganized. And on top of that, I just didn't find it too fun, because a lot of time characters waste actions because there's not anything for them to do, and additionally, unlike most games in this genre, your character's health does not heal at the end of battle, so you'll spend often the majority of your actions just going to the healing location to get back to fighting shape for the next combat, which I don't find very interesting or fun personally. But I'm going up to a mix for number 3, which is the enemy variety and how they activate. And on the positive side, the variety is really good here. Even out of just the base box without expansions, you've got a bunch of different enemies, each of them having 3 different ranks you can face them at. Some of them will spawn creatures, some of them have really, really high hit points, and they each have 5 unique activation cards. So not only are their stats different, but they'll attack different types of units. Some of them will attack multiple people. They can blow themselves up. They can throw pieces of themselves at other people. They can boost themselves, debuff you. Lots of variety in how they do their thing. But the part of the enemies that I didn't like as much is how they activate. First of all, a given enemy will tend to target the same seeker over and over again, which can lead to certain characters getting singled out and destroyed quickly. And if you're playing 3 or 4 player and that's your only character, that's a bummer. You just got to sit and watch. And additionally, for enemy activation, they made the choice, which I guess is kind of cool, that instead of each enemy activating every round, instead you have a randomized deck of cards, so one enemy might go 4 times in a row, or some enemy might never activate. And yeah, I guess it's cool in theory, but it definitely increases the swinginess of what the enemies do and can lead to really unsatisfying situations. I don't know, it just kind of felt off to me overall. And we're sticking right with a mix at number 2, which is the campaign structure. And I already talked about the encampment phase and kind of building up, but the general structure of the campaign is, as I said, 10 hunts, and that's okay. You do have different varied enemies. The enemy level increases to kind of go along with you, but there's nothing really cool at the end. You just play through these 10 non-narrative based hunts and you're done. That's it. Now, the part that brings us up to a mix instead of a con, because what I just said feels a bit bland, is that they do have a campaign mode even in the base game, which basically plays the same as the regular series of hunts, but does add in some narrative, adds in like some different bosses and things, gives you different objectives to go for. So playing through that, I think, is much more interesting than just the base 10 set of hunts, but that campaign is pretty much a one and done. There aren't really like branching paths or changing narrative or much variety to have you coming back. So you're going to fall back on that basic 10 hunt mode, and it's just not that exciting. And finally, the one main thing that I haven't gotten into at all, which is the tactical combat, because this is a miniature combat game, right? And unfortunately for me, this is also a mix. And the big reason is, compared to things like Primal that I covered recently, you have this big board, but there's very little that matters on it. Yes, there are some terrain pieces that have minor effects you can sometimes interact with, especially as you unlock more character powers, but really once characters have closed the distance on each other, the game just kind of boils down to trying to get around the back of enemies and get like the back attack bonus, and it almost feels like the dull Dungeons and Dragons fights I've had in past RPG campaigns. There's just not, for me, enough tactical positioning, terrain doesn't have enough effect, as I already said, the monster activation is pretty random, so you don't really feel as strategic as I would like in this game. So overall, I would recommend Wild Ascent. If you're really into miniature skirmish games, you might want to check it out, especially if you like playing competitive and solo co-op, because then you get to dig into the entire arena mode, which would give the game a lot more value. And also, if you like big, chunky miniatures, and quite a lot of them, this might float your boat, because they definitely have that. Even in the base game, there's a lot of nice minis. But on the other hand, you might want to avoid this one if you want a really clear, well-organized rulebook. They don't have that yet, although they're trying to fix it for the new Game Found campaign. Or if you're looking for an exciting, involved settlement phase with cool emergent narrative like KDM, you're not going to find that here. If you're looking for really intense tactical combat like Primal, I think this one kind of falls short, so a lot of things to be cautious about. But if you'd like to see the game for yourself and see how the hunt mode plays, click the link that just popped up. Good gaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.